Hey guys, welcome back to Nyx Reads, where we talk about books every week. Please feel free to subscribe if you love watching bookish content like I do, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Today's video is a first. I don't think I've filmed this type of format before, so we're gonna talk about new releases for the rest of the year to come that I am excited about, and I've included I think one for January 2024 as well. I usually have one or two releases for the year that I have my eye on, but I was looking through my TBR and I compiled a good amount of books that are yet to come out that I'm genuinely excited to read. The yet to be released titles that I have accumulated on my list are from all kinds of different genres. I will go through them by order of release date for some of these books. I know a lot about the plot, and some of them I vaguely know one thing that prompted me to put it on my TBR because I was convinced. The first one is by Isabel Canas. It's Vampires of El Norte. It's coming out on August 15th, so that's in about 2 weeks from now. This is described as a supernatural western that takes place at the Mexican-Texan border. That is pretty much all I know about this, so I'm guessing that this is going to be some kind of vampire hunter-esque horror story. The reason that this made it on my TBR is because I read and loved The Hacienda by Isabel Canas. I have a full book review of that book up on my channel if you want to hear more. I enjoyed the story and the writing of that one, so when I heard that she's releasing a new book with vampires, it was immediately on my TBR. I'm sure that it's gonna be a very fantastic story with an entertaining plot line and interesting characters. I hope there's gonna be a different twist on the vampires and the people that have to deal with the vampires. I'm not too sure in what year this is set, but based on the dress that I see on the woman on the cover, maybe this is taking us a bit back in time, which I think is cool because that's also what The Hacienda did. Next up, I have the first book of a new and upcoming fantasy duology by Jen Williams. It's called Talonsister. It's out September 12th. In the UK at least. I'm not sure if this is going to be easy to track down or buy or find in my library because it looks like it only has a release date in the UK so far. I found this book by chance. I was scrolling through my Goodreads feed and I saw somebody who I follow comment or like a review of an arc of this book. It was 5 stars and it was praising this book so much that I clicked on it and I wanted to know what it is about, and for some reason I was just so convinced that this is going to be an amazing fantasy. Our main character Levin has no memories left before becoming a so-called herald, which is a magical killing machine. The process of becoming such a killing machine is apparently completely traumatizing and painful. At the beginning of the story, she finds herself to be an unemployed herald with really no future. She doesn't really know what to do with herself. She starts noticing that other heralds around her start disappearing, and this leads her to a much grander quest, which, to be honest, I didn't read the rest of the summary because I was already convinced by the beginning part. Just quickly glanced over it and I think it promises a pretty vast fantasy world with a very complicated quest. Apparently in the story you'll also have griffins and there's some queer representation in here. I can't tell you exactly why, but all of this just sounded so good to me paired with that 5-star review that I saw. I honestly think that reading Fourth Wing, I have a vlog on that up dedicated to that book, it's just reignited this interest and spark for fantasy for me, so that's why a few fantasy releases made it on this list and I'm so excited about them all. Next up, from a completely different genre, is The Wakeup Call by Beth O'Leary. This is coming out September 26th. I'm not exactly sure what genre Beth O'Leary's books are. If you know, please tell me in the comments. This kind of could be in romance, but it's also kind of like chitlick. I've read The Swap and The Flat Share from this author and I absolutely enjoyed both of these. There's such a great balance of cozy, lighthearted stories with interesting plot lines paired with characters that have a lot of emotional depth and interesting backgrounds. In this book we have 2 sworn enemies, 1 failing hotel, and 1 chance to save the season. So I think this takes place around Christmas time as well, so I think it's a good thing to read this towards the end of the year to get you into the spirit. I've seen a few 5-star reviews for this book already, so I think if you're on the market for a light-hearted, cozy read, but that will make you feel things, this is going to be something for you as well. Moving into the horror category, I have A Haunting on the Hill by Elizabeth Hand. This is coming out on October 3rd, just in time for Halloween. This is a first-time authorized novel to return to the setting of Hill House. If you've never heard of Hill House, it is referring to this book here. It's The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This is a horror classic. It's from 1959. It is a favorite for a lot of horror readers. And my love for this story actually was started by watching the Netflix show The Haunting on Hill House by Mike Flanagan. So in A Haunting on the Hill, we have Holly, our main character, who's a struggling playwright, which already sounds pretty interesting. So she and her partner move into the house because she needs some kind of setting to write and rehearse her new play idea. And as the group of actors also arrive in that house, which they bring their own kind of history and ghosts with them, the people start to hear horrible sounds and start seeing interesting creatures roam around the property. So something about the arrival of all of these people and Holly awaken something within these walls. So this to me sounds like a classic haunted house story, but probably with a twist. As I haven't read this book yet because it hasn't been released, I cannot tell you if you need to read the classic before you dive into A Haunting on the Hill. My guess is yes, or at least your enjoyment might be enhanced if you've read this book beforehand, because I'm sure there's going to be references to it. Next, I have a Christmas romance that is coming out on October 10th. It's The Christmas Swap by Talia Samuels. I found this randomly on NetGalley. This is described as the perfect Christmas love story with a fake dating trope. But there's a twist. One of our characters is Margot, or Margaret, who's a newly single high-flying businesswoman. Then we have Ben, who desperately needs a woman to bring home for the holidays. So they agree on getting together and pulling off this ruse. Obviously, our main character, Margot, is gonna fall in love with somebody, but it is not Ben. It is Ben's sister, Ellie, who she meets during the holidays. So I thought this was a bit different and sounded very funny to me. And I think if you pull this off correctly with the characters and the plot line, I think this could make a very cool Christmas read. I actually, in fact, need to read it soon because NetGalley archives it, I think, in August. So I'm gonna be giving you my review on this probably in September, so keep your eyes out. Next, I have a nonfiction on here that I also discovered on NetGalley. It is coming out on October 24th. It's You Are What You Watch: How Movies and TV Affect Everything by Walter Hickey. Just the title and the tagline alone made me click on the book to see what it's about. This nonfiction dives into how entertainment changes our biology beliefs, how we see ourselves, and how nations gain power. I thought that sounded very relevant, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of pop culture references in this as well. On top of that, Walter Hickey is a former Pulitzer Prize winner, so I'm sure that the quality of the writing and the research in here is going to be spot on. Next up, I have a fantasy sequel that is coming out on November 7th. It's Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is the second book of the infamous Fourth Wing. Against all odds, I absolutely ate that book up, and I pre-ordered this book after I finished the first one, and I'm so excited to get back into the story. If you watch Book Talk or consume book media in any other form, you probably heard of Fourth Wing before. Just in case you haven't, my super short summary is that this is set in a fantastic world. This is a new adult book series about a dragon rider school, essentially, called Basquiat. In this academy, we have people coming in to become cadets. They train in combat and learn other skills in order to become dragon riders if a dragon chooses to bond with them. Technically, it is a romantasy, so there's a huge component of romance in this as well. I read Fourth Wing in less than a week, and it was a 500-page book, so you can guess how excited I am for the sequel. Next up, coming out on the same day, which if you watched that Fourth Wing vlog, you know that this is kind of a funny coincidence. So it's again coming out November 7th, and this is Murtagh by Christopher Paolini. I am completely overjoyed. This is returning to the world of Aragon that Christopher Paolini wrote, I don't know, like 20 years ago now. He was 15 when he wrote Aragon for the first time. I think I was around that age, or a bit younger, 13 or 14, when I started that series, and it is one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. If you've read the series, you know that Murtagh is one of the characters in the Aragon inheritance cycle, and this book itself takes place 1 year after that series ends. I don't know a lot about the story. I just saw that we get a 600+ page book, which this year just keeps on giving. It is amazing. I didn't expect this. I didn't expect Christopher Paolini to return to this world, and I just hope that I'm gonna be just as happy and intoxicated reading this book as I was 10 years ago when I read the Eragon series. In case you've never heard of Eragon before, this story takes place in the fictional fantasy world of Alagasia, where a young 14-year-old Eragon, who is a farmer's boy, finds the last ever dragon egg that exists. Ever since learning that Murtagh is coming out, I've been playing with the idea of rereading the 4 Eragon books before this, but my fear is that I'm going to be rereading them and they just do not hold up in quality anymore now that I'm much older and my threshold and criticism for fantasy is much higher now. Next up, I have a cozy mystery that I had no idea was coming out until Gloria mentioned it in one of her books and I was over the moon. It's coming out November 28th and it's The Mystery Guest by Nita Prose. You might recognize this author because she wrote The Maid, which was pretty huge last year. It was on a lot of bestseller lists and you probably have seen it in your bookstores. I thought that The Mystery Guest is going to be a sequel, a continuation, but I saw in the description that it says it's a standalone novel, so I assume this means you can read this one without having read The Maid before. Either way, in The Maid and in The Mystery Guest, our main character is Molly, who works at the Regency Grand Hotel. And in the first book, she stumbled upon a dead body in one of the Grand Suites and was suddenly involved in the investigation around this. And in this book, an acclaimed author dies at this hotel and somehow she gets involved again. I personally loved the voice of Molly and she was one of my favorite book characters from last year, so I am very glad that I can read about her again. She is neurodiverse, which makes it very interesting to follow her point of view. I really hope that I get the same tone and voice in this book as I got in The Maid because I loved her as the main book character. Lastly, coming out on January 9th in 2024, I have One of the Good Guys by Araminta Hall. I haven't read anything by this author yet. I have Our Kind of Cruelty on my TBR. If you've read that, let me know if you liked it. But I stumbled upon this book because Gillian Flynn, the author of Gone Girl, posted about this book. I think she's somehow involved in the publishing in this, but don't quote me on that. The cover was interesting, so I looked it up on Goodreads, and it says that it's a propulsive and twisty page-turner with razor-sharp socio-political insight. The sentence that made me add this to my TBR instantly is, one of the good guys asks, if men claim to be good, why are most women still afraid to walk home alone at night? That instantly made me put this book on my TBR. In the story, we have Cole, who's a newly separated man who moves out to the English countryside from London, where he meets Leonora. So they start a new romantic relationship, and as it happens, 2 young women activists raising awareness about gendered violence, they pass through the village where they live and then they disappear. And somehow Cole and Leonora get involved into the investigation. Based on the former sentence that I said that this is a twisty page turner, it's going to be interesting to see what they have to do with the disappearance of these 2 women. I don't know what to expect at all, but this just sounded very interesting to me, almost like a literary horror. These are all the books that are going to be released towards the end of 2023 that I have on my TBR. Did any of these make it on your TBR list? And most importantly, what are some of the titles you are anticipating that are yet to come out for the end of the year? I would be happy to look into them and maybe add them to my TBR. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it so I know that you liked it. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.